Tired of the crazy crap? April 2, 2020 by Justice Anna von Reitz. I remember the day when I said to myself, I can't continue to live in fear of my own government. My own employees. People on my payroll. The ridiculousness of the fact that I was funding my own demise struck home like a knife. The realization that our armed forces were being used as very ill-paid mercenaries and used in wars for profit sickened me. And I turned my eyes toward Washington, D.C., like everyone else does, initially, to see, I thought, the source of the problem. I realized after a year or two of sparring with bureaucrats that the problem was deeper than political lobbies and payola, and that it had its roots in Rome and its branches in London and its fruits on Wall Street. So, yes, hold those in Washington, D.C., accountable as accomplices, but don't be naive. The real power and corruption has come here from overseas and been operated through Delaware and New York City. Today, we are going to further explain and expose the role that the territorial state of Delaware legislature has played. After the Civil War, the British territorial government usurpers secretively set up federal state trusts in the name of each state. These trusts were named using the style, Ohio State, Florida State, Vermont State, Wisconsin State. And, of course, Delaware State. The British territorial state legislature operating the state of Delaware contrived to operate using two hats, as the trustees of the Delaware State Trust and as the state of Delaware legislature. Operating as trustees of the Delaware State Trust they created, the state legislature allowed municipal corporations to shelter under the Delaware State Trust. This clothed these foreign corporations with what has appeared to be sovereign immunity, but is provably not so. The Delaware State Trust references the state of Delaware, a member of the failed Confederation of States formed in March of 1781, and pertains to assets belonging to the state of Delaware, not Delaware, which is a federation state that was never involved in the Civil War. Only Delaware has sovereign immunity. Any idea that Delaware corporations issued a charter under the Delaware State Trust have sovereign immunity, must be recognized as a grave error and false claim. While this mistaken belief has persisted, these so-called Delaware corporations, many of them foreign municipal corporations, have operated with impunity and claimed sovereign immunity, but ownership by the Delaware State Trust is not the same as ownership by Delaware. Remember that the Delaware State Trust was created by the territorial state of Delaware legislature. It's a foreign statutory trust subject to dissolution upon the appearance of the Delaware Assembly, which has now occurred. For those who have difficulty following all the similar names, let us give an analogy. I hire a groundskeeper named Tim Tattle to mow my lawn and keep my yard in shape. Unknown to me, Tim suffers an accident and disappears. His cousin Mortimer sets up a trust named Tim Tattle Trust, and my lawn continues to be mowed, with me none the wiser. Decades go by, and I wake up one morning to find that the Tim Tattle Trust has been claiming to own my home and property and to exercise my sovereign immunity for me, and has also claimed the ability to extend my sovereign immunity to protect foreign corporations that are intent on doing me harm. So, this is where the crazy crap comes in the door. The people of Delaware who are state citizens and members of the Delaware Assembly are waking up to precisely this scenario. Other states have been similarly affected, but this mistake occurred first in Delaware. No wonder that thousands upon thousands of foreign corporations have poured through the door seeking to use and abuse Delaware's sovereign immunity for their own purposes. One of those corporations is a municipal corporation called the Corporation Trust Company operating out of Wilmington, Delaware, which set itself up under these false presumptions to serve as an international business agent for other foreign corporations seeking to take advantage of Delaware's immunity, without the inconvenience of even maintaining their own office in Delaware. Hiring the Corporation Trust Company as their agent allows these foreign corporations to use it as their local office and to establish a Delaware corporation without ever setting foot in Delaware. Only the correct fact of the matter is that they are not establishing Delaware corporations, they are establishing Delaware State Trust corporations instead, and these are owed no sovereign immunity at all. A statutory trust created by a territorial state legislature cannot offer what it does not itself possess. Rather, the immunity owed the assets in the Delaware State Trust derives from the fact that the original Confederation member doing business as the state of Delaware had some federal land grants within the borders of Delaware, post office properties, railroad right-of-ways, arsenals, etc., that are protected land interests of Delaware, the actual state. In other words, the assets in the Delaware State Trust that are land assets belonging ultimately to Delaware do enjoy sovereign immunity, but it is the source and nature of the assets that determines their immunity, not the simple fact that they are sheltered in the Delaware State Trust. So, the idea that a foreign corporation can come to Delaware and receive a dollop of Delaware's sovereign immunity by sheltering in the Delaware State Trust is ignorant bunk and always has been. And now we come to the crux of the matter. The people of Delaware have shaken off the false registrations entered in their names and have declared their proper birthright political status and have summoned their state assembly. Delaware, the actual state, is now in session. With Delaware in business and properly assembled, there is no longer any need for a Delaware State Trust, and by operation of law, all assets contained in the Delaware State Trust revert back to Delaware and come under the Delaware Assembly's administration. Read that Delaware now controls the Delaware State Trust and all the Delaware corporations, under both international and national law. The assumed trusteeship of the territorial state of Delaware has ended the moment that the Delaware Assembly convened. Regardless of their venal motivations and intent to abuse Delaware's sovereign immunity, all those corporations that chartered in Delaware and sheltered in the Delaware State Trust are now owned directly by Delaware. They are all now operating under public law and land law, including the federal constitutions, and subject to the administration of an American state, which recognizes the fact that an incorporated entity can never be sovereign by definition, and enjoys no sovereign immunity, borrowed or otherwise. This includes BlackRock, Inc., and all its subdivisions, LLCs, PLCs, et alia. As our erstwhile employees were obliged to meet Mr. Fink as their new boss a few days ago, Mr. Fink, please meet Annie McShane, the coordinator and spokesperson for the Delaware Assembly, and Anna Maria Riesinger, the fiduciary of the United States of America. We own BlackRock, Inc.